Picture this. It's 6 a.m., your alarm's screaming at you, and you're shuffling into the kitchen like a zombie on a mission. What's the first thing you grab? That trusty jar of instant coffee, of course. A couple of scoops, a splash of hot water, and bam! Coffee in seconds. But have you ever paused mid-yawn to wonder how those tiny granules ended up in your mug? Spoiler alert, it's not just ground-up beans. It's a wild ride of science, engineering, and some serious heat. Let's dive into the epic journey of your morning lifesaver, from farm to factory to your sleepy hands, right here on History of Simple Things. The bean beginnings. It all kicks off with coffee beans. Yep, the same stuff that fuels your fancy lattes. There are two MVPs in this game, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica's the smooth jazz of the coffee world, mellow, flavorful, easygoing. Robusta? That's the heavy metal, bold, strong, and loaded with caffeine. Instant coffee loves Robusta for that extra kick in both taste and energy. These beans grow up in tropical hotspots like South America, Africa, and Asia. When they're ripe and ready, they're plucked, sometimes by hand, sometimes by machine, then stripped of their fruity shells and dried out. But here's the twist. These beans aren't pampered like your artisanal espresso stash. They're roasted darker, cranking up their solubility and flavor extraction. Think of it like turning up the volume on a speaker. More intensity, more punch. Roasting, the heat is on. Now let's crank up the heat, literally. The beans hit the roaster at a sizzling 200 to 230 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than your Thanksgiving oven, folks. This is where the magic starts. Aromatic oils burst out, and that deep, rich coffee flavor comes alive. The longer they roast, the bolder and more bitter they get. Kind of like overcooking your steak if you're not careful. Once they're perfectly toasted, they're ground into a coarse powder. But hold up. This isn't where the story ends like it does for your drip coffee. Brewing big time. Imagine a coffee factory with vats the size of swimming pools. That's where these grounds head next. They're brewed under crazy high pressure, squeezing out every last drop of flavor and caffeine. It's not your gentle pour-over vibe. Think of it as making the world's biggest, strongest cup of joe. The water's kept at a precise 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. Too hot? You've got a bitter mess. Too cold? It's weak and sad. When it's done, you're left with a super concentrated coffee liquid. Basically, coffee on steroids. The drying drama. Now comes the real wizardry, turning that liquid into the granules you scoop out every morning. There are two ways to pull this off, spray drying and freeze drying. And each has its own flair. Spray drying. Picture spraying water into the air on a scorching summer day. It vanishes fast, right? That's the vibe here. The coffee liquid gets misted into a chamber blazing at 200 degrees Celsius, 392 degrees Fahrenheit. The droplets dry in a flash, leaving tiny coffee particles behind. It's quick, it's cheap, but it might steal some of that sweet coffee aroma. Freeze drying. This one's fancier, like making artisanal ice cream. First, the coffee's frozen into slabs at a bone-chilling minus 40 degrees Celsius. Then, those slabs get smashed up and tossed into a vacuum chamber. The pressure drops and the ice skips the melting phase, turning straight into vapor. Science nerds call this sublimation. What's left? Chunky granules that hold onto more flavor and aroma than their spray-dried cousins. Next time you peek in your jar, check the texture. Big, distinct crystals? Probably freeze-dried. Fine powder? Likely spray-dried. Sealed and delivered. Once dried, those granules get locked up tight in jars, pouches, or those handy single-serve packets. It's like vacuum packing your leftovers and keeps them fresh and soluble. Instant coffee's a champ at staying good for years, unlike ground coffee that goes stale faster than you can say espresso. Some makers even toss in stabilizers or aroma boosts to make it taste more like the fresh brewed stuff. Why it's a fan favorite. So why is instant coffee still a big deal, even with coffee snobs rolling their eyes? It's the superhero of caffeine, fast, cheap, and ready to save your day. No grinder, no machine, no barista skills needed. Just water, and you're set. It's perfect for offices, travel, or those I overslept emergencies. Plus, it's a secret weapon in baking, cooking, or even whipping up a barista-style drink. Sure, it might not match a fresh espresso's depth, but with fancy freeze-drying tricks and flavor upgrades, some premium instant stuff is getting scarily close. Coffee trivia time. Here's some fun stuff to sip on. Instant coffee was born in 1901, thanks to a Japanese chemist named Satoru Kato. It didn't hit the big time until World War II, when soldiers made it their go-to. Oh, and it dissolves in cold water too, perfect for iced coffee on the fly. In places like South Korea, instant coffee mixes with sugar and creamer are basically a cultural obsession. The final stir. So, next time you're stirring up a cup, give those granules a little nod. They've been through a wild journey. Carefully picked beans, fiery roasts, high-pressure brews, and some next-level drying tech. Whether it's spray-dried for speed or freeze-dried for flavor, every speck in that jar is engineered to jolt you awake in seconds. Instant coffees flip the script on how we drink our brew, making it cheap, easy, and everywhere. From military rations to space missions to your groggy mornings, even specialty brands are jumping on the instant train with tastier twists. So, what's your take? Are you all about the slow, sacred ritual of fresh coffee? Or do you secretly love the no-fuss charm of instant? Let us know. And hey, got ideas for our next deep dive? Drop them in the comments, we'll shout you out. Thanks for hanging with us on History of Simple Things. Like, subscribe, and stick around for more tales hidden in the everyday stuff we take for granted.